mid-1700s, the vast forests, rivers, and mountains of North America stood at the center of a struggle that would shape the continent. Two great European powers, France and Great Britain, sought control. Native nations whose people had lived here for centuries found themselves drawn into the conflict. This was the France and Indian War. For France, North America was more than a territory. It was an empire. Along the St. Lawrence River and deep into the interior, French forts and trading posts linked by rivers and alliances with native nations.
We hold the rivers, we hold the heart of this land. With our native allies, we will stop the British from pushing west.
The French relied on trade, especially furs. They sought partnership with native nations, offering goods in exchange for pelts. Yet beneath the friendship lay ambition. The French aimed to control land from Canada to Louisiana. Meanwhile, Britain's colonies on the Atlantic coast swelled with settlers. Town expanded, farms spread, and families looked westward. To them, land meant opportunity.
Our people increased by the year. Why should the French force stop English families from claiming land? These valleys and forests must belong to Britain. If it takes soldiers, if it takes war, so be it.
The British crown, eager to protect its colonies and expand wealth, sent troops across the ocean. For Britain, this was not just about territory. It was about power, trade, and supremacy over France. For native nations, the war was not a distant quarrel. It was fought on their homelands. They weighed their choices carefully.
The French brings us muskets, cloth, and friendship, but we too desire our rivers and hunting grounds. If we fight for one, we risk the wrath of the other. If we fight for none, we risk being crushed between them.
Some nations like the Hurrian and Algonquin sided with the French. Others like the Iroquois Confederacy leaned towards the British. Each hoped to protect their people, their trade, and their sovereignty. But alliances carried heavy risks. From the Ohio River Valley to the Canadian frontier, battles raged early on. French forces, supported by native warriors, struck hard. British forts fell and the frontier burned. But Britain had greater numbers, more ships across the Atlantic carrying soldiers and supplies. By 1759. The tide turned. The Battle of Quebec became decisive. The French stronghold fell to the British. In 1763, the Treaty of Paris ended the war. The results reshaped the map. France ceded Canada and lands east of the Mississippi to Britain. Spain gained Louisiana, but France's empire in North America was gone. Britain now ruled vast lands, but victory brought debt, leading the crown to tax its colonies, a spark for future revolution. For native nations, the outcome was dire. With France gone, Britain no longer needed their alliances. Settlers pressed further west, promises were broken, conflict erupted again in uprising like Pontic's War. The struggle of survival on native homelands would continue long after the French and Indian War had ended. The French and Indian War was more than a clash between empires. It was a turning point in history, a struggle that determined who would shape North America and what it cost. For France, it was a loss. For Britain, triumph mixed with burden. And for native nations, it was the beginning of an even greater fight to defend their lands and way of life. After the French and Indian War ended, many people were affected and other acts occurred after. For example, in 1764, Prime Minister Grenville introduced the Currency Act, stopping the colonies from printing more paper money and requiring colonists to pay British traders in gold and silver. Instead of the colonial paper money, Grenville also brought out the Sugar Act in 1764, which ended up lowering the responsibility on British molasses by half from 6 pences, which is change or money, like pennies, per gallon to 3. Grenville created this measure to address the problem of the uncontrolled colonial smuggling with the French sugar island in the West Indies. Another thing connected to the 1764 Act is colonial violations of the Navigation Acts had been tried in local courts where sympathetic colonial juries refused to convict merchants on trial.